all coincidences with real people are random. If they tell you that this is not the case, ignore them. Dark clouds gathered over the castle perched on a hill, overlooking the gloomy lands of Latveria. The castle, surrounded by ancient forests and cold cliffs, belonged to Victor von Doom, Dr. Doom, one of the most powerful and sinister beings ever to walk the earth. Doom was known as a ruthless dictator and a great scientist, but something much darker nested in his heart. In recent months, strange events began occurring in Latveria. Nightly screams echoing from Doom's castle terrified the villagers, and people started disappearing in the surrounding forests. Those who dared to approach the castle never returned. Rumors spread that Doom was conducting forbidden experiments involving ancient magical artifacts and forces best left unknown. One warm yet silent evening, a young woman clad in dark attire approached the castle. Her name was Elizabeth Reynolds, a scholar and mage known for her knowledge of dark magic. Her journey to Doom's castle was driven by desperation. For years, she had studied magical artifacts, trying to find a way to bring back her deceased sister. Learning that Dr. Doom possessed unique knowledge and artifacts, she decided to meet him. Elizabeth traveled great distances and faced countless dangers to reach Latveria. When she approached the castle, the gates opened on their own, as if she had been expected. Faint light filtered through the windows, illuminating the ancient walls and Gothic arches. The castle was as silent as a grave. Elizabeth had no idea that her steps on the cold stone floor were leading her closer to inevitable doom. The further she ventured into the castle, the stronger the feeling of evil presence grew. Shadows stalked her, and whispers in an unknown language echoed from dark corners. Finally, Elizabeth reached the central hall of the castle, where Dr. Doom himself sat on a black metal throne. His face, hidden behind a mask, seemed even more terrifying in the dim light of burning torches. His eyes, gleaming through the steel slits, pierced her soul. "You've come to me, knowing it could be your last mistake." Doom's voice echoed through the hall. "What drove you to this path?" Elizabeth barely resisted the urge to kneel before his grandeur, but her resolve remained firm. "I've come to find a way to bring back my sister," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I know you possess knowledge that can help me." Doom rose from his throne and approached her. His presence was overwhelming, and darkness seemed to envelop his figure. "You are playing with forces far more powerful than you can imagine," he said. "But I can show you what truly lies behind these forces." He raised his hand, and the air around them began to thicken. Shadows in the hall came to life, as if beings from other worlds were beginning to emerge, their existence beyond the comprehension of ordinary human minds. Suddenly, Elizabeth felt her consciousness plunging into the abyss. Elizabeth awoke in a place that resembled a nightmare more than reality. She found herself in a desert, where the sand was replaced by dark, pulsating substances, and the sky was covered with blood-red clouds. Scattered around her were pieces of bodies and twisted remains of unknown creatures. She tried to find a way back, but every step she took was accompanied by visions of horror and pain. Images of her sister, distorted and tormented, haunted her, filling her with guilt and despair. Figures with disfigured faces emerged from the mist, silently accusing her of betrayal. Eventually, she realized this was not just a nightmare, but a reflection of her deepest fears and doubts, materialized in this maddening world. After some time, Elizabeth found herself on the shore of a black ocean, whose waves seemed alive. They rose and fell as if trying to grab her and drag her into the depths. On the opposite shore, she saw a light emanating from a tall tower, realizing she must reach it to find answers. She walked along a narrow bridge stretching across the churning waters, but each step became increasingly difficult. She was surrounded by darkness, in which strange and frightening silhouettes flickered. She heard her sister's voice calling her from the depths of the sea, but knew it was just another trick. Reaching the tower, Elizabeth began her ascent up its endless stairs. Each step echoed in her consciousness, forcing her to recall moments from her past filled with pain and loss. Time here did not exist, and every moment could last an eternity. Finally, reaching the top, she found that inside the tower there was nothing but a mirror. Looking into it, Elizabeth saw her reflection, but it began to distort, turning into the image of her sister. The mirror started pulsing, distorting reality, and before her stood her sister, dead yet living in this twisted space. Elizabeth realized her only path was to accept her loss and stop trying to reclaim the past. But as soon as she accepted this, the mirror cracked and the reality around her began to collapse. She awoke on the cold floor of the hall in Doom's castle. He stood before her, his eyes glowing with triumph. "You've seen what lies on the other side," he said. "You sought power, but now you have become its prisoner." Elizabeth understood that she was now forever linked to the darkness she had uncovered. She could no longer distinguish reality from illusions. Her mind was plunged into madness. Satisfied with his creation, Dr. Doom released Elizabeth. She left the castle, her eyes empty and her mind broken. She wandered the lands of Latveria with no purpose, her mind forever trapped in the labyrinths created by the horrors she had endured. Dr. Doom returned to his throne room, knowing his experiments were successful. He had gained new knowledge, but his thirst for power only grew. Armed with darkness, he was ready for new experiments, ready to create even more intricate and horrifying creations.